Okay, hi. I'm Paulina Chin. I'm a senior architect here at Maplesoft. This year I celebrated my 25th anniversary with the company. I have to admit that for a long time I was a bit of a dinosaur, used command line Maple for most of my work. I still use command line Maple a lot. But then I had to learn to create some documents. I had to do some work which required doing presentations. I learned to really love making math apps, and I thought I would share with you some of the tips that I found really useful. So this talk is basically a presentation of all my favorite tips. Some of the features I'll be talking about have been around for quite a while, and you might know them already if you're a heavy Maple user. Some of them are newer features. So let me start. I'll go to organizing your content. And at an earlier presentation today, one of our speakers, well, more than one, or some speakers were showing workbooks, and there were some questions about, well, what is a workbook? And this is a feature that has been Maple for quite a while, but for some reason I think they're pretty underused. So I thought I'd mention that the workbook exists and show you an example. In fact, this presentation itself is an example. So a workbook basically collects together in one file a number of Maple worksheets, archives, language files, other files containing data such as images and so on. So you could go to this help page you could search up workbook file format if you want to know more about it. But basically, in my workbook, I can go to this workbook pane and the navigator palette, and it shows me all the different worksheets that are here. And then I'll say more about this other file later. And if you notice in our new ribbon interface, there's a workbook tab up here. And so you can use this to help manipulate files in your workbook. Now, we'll be saying a little bit more about that later. You've probably already used links in Maple. You can add hyperlinks to URLs. You can add links to help pages, so to bring up a specific help page. But you can also use bookmarks to reference any worksheet any worksheet in your workbook and to other sections of your worksheet. So here's an example. If I want to go to the section called Code Edit Regions in another worksheet that I have here, I click on it, and it opens up that worksheet and then goes directly to that section. Now, if I'm here, how do I know there is a bookmark that's listed here? If you go to the View menu and you hit Markers, then you'll see that there is a bookmark inserted there. And you can, sorry, let me go back to my original sheet here. Yes, and then you can also insert links by using reference. That's what I was looking for. So you can use reference from the Insert tab to add bookmarks and links, and then you can view and edit these links by looking at, sorry, that's going to jump back there because I clicked on it, but if you open the context panel, then you can see the hyperlink, and you can see the path here. Now, how did I find this path so that I could type it in? If you're looking for a workbook path, what you do is you go back to this navigator, click, right click on this, and then it says copy path, and you can use that to add to your hyperlink information. Now, very conveniently, at this earlier talk, there was also some questions about startup code. So this I'm very glad that I included that in my talk here, and I'll say a few words about startup code. So you can reduce clutter with the start by putting code in the startup region. And to get to it, you go to the Home tab and you click on Startup Code. And you'll see that this is absolutely empty because I don't have any code for this worksheet. However, I'll show you one of our math apps. This will make it look more interesting. Okay, let me first turn off the markers to get that out of the way. So this is a math app from our math apps guide. And you'll notice that there's some interactive applications, some plots and so on here. And you can do things to interactively with these plots. And then you might be wondering, well, where is all the code to do this? Well, first of all, if you actually want to see what's behind one of our math apps, you have to find this little box at the very bottom that's called editable. And if you click on it, then you can actually view what's behind the scenes in this math app and edit. Now, if I now click on this, let's see if this will do it for me. If I click down here, I'll see edit click code, and I see a call to a Maple procedure. Now, where is the code for that call? If I go up to home, click on startup code, and voila, here is all the code that is behind this worksheet and used by the components. So it's a very nice way using the startup code region to hide any code you want because you don't want to distract the user of the worksheet with that code. All right. So let's see. So that is organizing content.
Paulina, if I can ask a quick question, when is the startup code executed?
Oh, it is, as it suggests, it is executed on startup. So
That means when you open the workbook?
yes, when you open the worksheet, I believe there's a dialog says, "Would you like to execute?" But it also gets executed if you re-execute the entire worksheet. Okay, hope that answers your question. All right, let's go to our next section. So I had already seen you showed you a brief preview of that. Let me just make this a little larger. Creating readable worksheets. So here I'm going to talk about things to make a worksheet a little bit tidier. So first of all, I really like using tables to do to lay out the worksheet. And so if I go to my original outline, for example, I used a table here to show the different parts of my presentation. And tables are used in all our math apps as examples. This is a squeeze theorem math app, and you'll see there's tables all along here. And if I use the context panel and open it, and I click on this table, there's a problem. I can't see any of the table properties, and that's because I haven't clicked on this little editable box down here. But if I do, then I can see the table properties. I can do things like change the borders, and change other properties in the table. And so I find using tables really a great way of laying out math and plots and embedded components side by side. Okay, let me close these just to tidy up a little. Otherwise, I get too confused with all my open worksheets. All right, let's talk about code edit regions. Now, code edit regions, similar to startup code, it's a place to put your code, except instead of having it just in there in the startup code, these can be inserted anywhere in your worksheet. And they're great because, well, if you've looked at older worksheet, if you've authored older worksheet, you'll see, you have lots of execution groups all over the place. You could use 2D math and it looks tidier in some ways, but you don't have fixed width indentations. So I love code edit regions. I tend to now, if I have more than a few lines of code, I'll put it right in the code edit region. And you insert these by going to Insert and Code Edit Region. You can then use the context panel to adjust. I think by default it's auto fit container, but my preference is to use a specific width and be able to scroll. So that's your preference, what you like. You can change the size if you click. If you set auto fit container to false. The other nice thing about the code edit regions is you can have it not expanded so that it doesn't, again, it gives you less clutter in your worksheet, but the code is still there if someone wants to open it up and look at it. Now, another place where a code edit region can appear is if you have an MPL file, a Maple language file, typically saved with the file extension MPL. If you have this in your workbook and you click on it, then it comes up in a code edit region as well. Now, one kind of nice thing that has been changed with code edit regions, let me try to make this open again. You can use the palette to enter code. So I can click on the palette and I get the 1D version of that. Now, you may also notice that that there's a little red squiggle here, and that's because it doesn't like that I've added this without the semicolon. And what's happening is that we're seeing Maple's syntax checking, which is in the code edit region. Now, so what is syntax checking? It basically is done via Maple's syntax checker Mint, and any of you who have used command line Maple will have probably used Mint at some point to run on your files if you're an oldie like me, but now it's all built into the code edit region. And you can actually change some of the settings, and here's the trick question: how do you find the options dialog? Well, you go to File, and there's a button here that says Options. Open it up, and you get different options you can set. If you go to Display, then down here, syntax check level, you can change it here. And you can change other aspects of your interface here. So that's the options dialog in the File tab. Let's talk about sections I'm sure those of you who have used the Maple worksheet will be familiar with adding sections, but maybe there's a few things that you've not tried yet. If you go to the View menu and go under Sections, there's some options here, and one thing you can do is adjust section boundaries. You can toggle the boundaries. You can show the arrows or hide the arrows and so on. And one thing I like when I'm giving a presentation, I usually like to remove output. So you do that in the evaluation tab, remove output from the worksheet, and then I go to view sections, and then sorry, I've got to move my Zoom bar here out of the way first. Then I go to sections, collapse all sections, and then this is ready for my presentation. One other feature that you might not know about is slideshow mode. It's actually been around for a while. I remember a couple years ago giving a presentation to a bunch of people who've been using Maple for almost 30 years, and they were familiar with all the new features. They always updated to the latest Maple, and I thought, there's nothing new I can show them. But then I showed slideshow, and they were very excited, and because they miss seeing that in the updates. And so if I click on slideshow, then basically I get a slideshow with each section being one slide. Okay, there we go. All right, so that's creating readable worksheets. Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, sharing your content. Okay, so this talk is about organizing and sharing your Maple documents. I gave you some of my favorite tips for organizing. Now I'll talk about sharing. And there are a number of places to share. Well, of course, we would prefer you share your Maple content everywhere on your social media channels, in your classrooms, email your colleagues, whatever. But there are some specific places that are part of the Maple community. So if you don't yet have an account on the Maple Cloud, so an account on the Maple Cloud also works for Maple Primes, Maple Learn, and so on. But in the top right corner here, you can sign into the Maple Cloud. You can make an account, and that's a place where you can upload your files so that you can have access to them anywhere you're connected to the internet, and you can download if you're traveling somewhere else, or you have a computer elsewhere. You can also make your documents public and offer links to people to download your Maple workbooks and worksheets. Another place, let me see if I can actually get to the Maple Application Center is another place that has loads of applications because it's been around for a long time. These are applications. When I say applications, I mean, worksheets, Maple documents, anything that one of our users might want to share, and also some of our staff members. Sometimes we staff members create things that are not that missed the next version of Maple, or that is really a side thing to supplement what's in the product, and so we'll put it on the application center. And that's a great place to go look for content and also to share your own. Anyways, our Maple Primes forum is where you go to talk about to exchange ideas about Maple, to ask questions. The forum has been around for a long time, I think at least 20 years, so that means there's a wealth of knowledge there. Maple Transactions is our journal for the Maple community, and it accepts research papers that go through a full review process with peer reviewing, double-blind peer reviewing. But we also love getting smaller contributions, classroom stories, puzzles, artwork, and so on. So there's going to be a lot more said about the Maple transactions later in this conference, so I won't say any more now. Printing and exporting. So you can export entire worksheets to LaTeX and PDF. If you used Maple, say, 20 years ago, and you said, this export to LaTeX is really limited, or export to PDF doesn't do what you want, I recommend trying again because we've made many improvements over the past few years. We also have lots of exports of individual elements like plots, matrices, data. And if you look up formats, then you can see a complete list of all the input and output format. I know earlier today someone asked about Excel, so you can look up in our help pages about the features, the functionality that we have. We have a print layout mode as well. So this is a relatively new feature. If you go to the View tab and you click on print layout, then you can view what your worksheet might look like printed before you actually do that. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention is the concept of a canvas. In 2021, the idea of a canvas was introduced. It's a document template where math can be inserted and acted on, and it's also used in our Maple Learn product. It's the basis of our Maple Learn product that can be displayed in the browser. But it also can be used in Maple, and all the programming is done using the document tools Canvas package. So we have some examples, and this was built in Maple, and you can interact with that. I'm showing it in my browser, and so you can do things to update. But basically, this canvas was built in Maple. Here's another example. And so these are canvases built in Maple, but shown through Maple Learn in the browser. Um, and and here's just a quick example of literal practice that you can make. So you can view it in Maple Learn, or you can view it here inside Maple. So that's another way of sharing your content through our other product. Now I think I'll stop sharing so I can see all of you here. And Mike, are there any questions? I see there are lots of messages, so I don't think
Yes,
I can read them that quickly. Maybe you could point out any I should answer.
yes, there have been a few in the chat. There was some discussion on the maintainability of startup code. Do you have any comments on having startup code versus an external like .maple file?
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by maintainability. We try to, I find first of all, if I do an application, we created some of these math apps, the code is much more maintainable if it's in the startup code than scattered among the components. And I usually create a module and put the procedures in, and then have shared data and so on. In terms of if you have, let's say, code that you want to use over several worksheets, like a package, common code that might be called in many places, then it makes much more sense to create a separate archive for that, and because you'll want to reuse it. So you don't want to copy that code into several different workbooks and do it there.
The answer, it depends, is always applicable. Well
It
said.
depends, yes.
A question just now, is it possible to copy some formulas and paste it in a LaTeX file?
Copies and paste it in a LaTeX file. I don't know. I don't know if you could do a direct copy and paste. You could use the LaTeX command in Maple if you want to not convert the whole worksheet, but you just want to do an expression.
Yeah, and I think for an individual expression, you might be able to right click and specifically copy as LaTeX.
Yes, maybe that's possible.
Yeah. There's another question. So thank you to Alex for suggesting an answer. But maybe to clarify, is it possible to set exact widths of columns in a table instead of using a mouse to interactively drag it?
Oh, yes. If you open the context panel, you can change all the properties column wise and for the entire table.